Welcome to Greatness Mindset. I am Dr. Aisha Al-Sheikh. I'm a medical scientist and researcher turned therapist, coach, mentor, and business entrepreneur. Greatness Mindset is a podcast that brings you motivational and authentic messages from incredibly inspiring and extraordinary people, where I dive in and deconstruct their mind to explore different aspects of their lives, from entrepreneurship and leadership to motivation, fears, and how they overcame their struggles, tackled their inner demons, and overcame adversity. This show dissects the psychology behind their successes to help you discover and unlock your inner potential and give the most effective tips, advice, and lessons that you can emulate or apply in your own life, especially if you are just starting your entrepreneurial journey. Each week, I bring you an inspiring and extraordinary person, so keep yourself updated with the latest episodes by subscribing now to this podcast. Don't be afraid of failing. If you can't go down one route for whatever reason, there is always another way to achieve something big. And the biggest thing is to find something you enjoy doing. If you are passionate about something, you're going to stick at it. And when you stick at it, you will be good at it. And when you are good at it, you will be successful at it. And when you are successful, then you will inspire others to do the same. And that's when you really are going to change the minds of the people. You need ambition to push the boundaries. By Jamie Barrow. This is episode 6. My amazing special guest in this episode is an inspiring athlete and entrepreneur known as Britain's fastest snowboarder and Guinness World Record holder for the fastest speed on a snowboard, Jamie Barrow. After a really bad accident in a Boardercross competition, he went from not getting good results prior to his injuries to winning the British Championships 3 times in a row. He decided to set goals to going for the 2014 Winter Olympics and created his whole life around this goal. However, in January 2013, the qualifying year for the Olympics, he had another bad accident that completely changed his life, where he destroyed a disc in his lower back and was told he will never be able to run or snowboard again and will be in pain for the rest of his life. In that moment, he felt his whole life was taken away. Despite what the doctors told him, in April 2013, he was determined to snowboard again and ended up breaking the British snowboard speed record that completely changed the path of where he was taking his snowboarding. He became even more successful after his injuries and also started his own property development business. Without further ado, let's dive into this episode where Jamie shares his story, struggles, and advice. I'm really glad to have this time to dive into deep questions with you because, you know, when we're like hanging out, it's just different. So let's just start briefly. Let's say a bit about your background and your story.
Yeah, first off, thanks, Aisha. Thanks for having me on. I think it's awesome what you're doing. So I'm really glad to be part of it. Yeah, I was actually born and brought up in Switzerland, and my parents are teachers out there, and we went to a school where they actually taught, and my mum was actually one of my teachers growing up, which was quite good. But going through school itself, I struggled quite a lot. I, quite an early age, found out that I'm dyslexic. And to a lot of people, this might not cause a lot of effect to your life, but for me, it was quite drastic, and I really quite struggled a lot with reading, writing, spelling, these sort of things. So going through school, I always felt that I was not as good or not as smart as all my other classmates, and didn't think I would become anything as successful as everyone else in the class. So straight up, I was feeling like not as good as everyone else, and that affected me quite a lot. But at the same time, it was around the age of 8 when I discovered snowboarding, And actually, snowboarding for me, I was never really that competitive. I was actually quite shy back then. And snowboarding was just kind of a thing I would just really enjoy doing. So I could get away out the school and forget about all that and just enjoy myself. And it was a moment for me to kind of get away, be in my own mind, and I absolutely loved it because of that. And I had no plan to take it further. I had no plan to become a professional snowboarder or anything. I just continued doing it because I just really enjoyed it. And then and it gave me that distraction from being dyslexic and not being good enough on anything else. And snowboarding just kind of slowly progressed. I started to get a little bit better. And then one summer, my parents signed me up to a snowboard camp up on the glaciers. And you can go snowboarding during the summer. You go very high up on the glaciers, and I think it was Zermatt. And they signed me up. They started driving me up, but what they didn't tell me was actually it was the tryouts for the British junior snowboard team. Uh-huh. And the reason why they didn't tell me was because, like I said, at the time, I was someone who was not very confident. Not in this. I hated competition because I always felt I'd not be as good as that person. So I hated that confidence. So they knew I wouldn't be up for doing this, then going and tryouts for the British team. But they signed me up anyway and just was basically already in it. And once I calmed myself down, I was like, okay, well, let's give it a go. And I had the most amazing week doing freestyle snowboarding with the British team and absolutely loved it. And at the end of the week, I got asked to join the British junior snowboard team, and basically that's where it all kicked off.
Have you had any difficulties with the snowboarding?
Absolutely. I mean, loads of stuff. I mean, snowboarding is a very dangerous sport, first off. There are loads of things that go wrong. When I was first competing, I first started in freestyle snowboarding. I never really got any good results, to be honest. And at first year, I was kind of like, okay, it's my first year, I'll get better. Second year came in and I still wasn't getting very many good results. So it was at this point I was thinking, okay, this was my big break. What I thought was my big break maybe wasn't. And I started to kind of eat myself up inside about this, and it kind of started to affect me in everyday life. And then I think it might have been due to this. I had an accident in it and it really shook me up quite a lot. But I still loved snowboarding. I wanted to give it a go. And it was at this point I discovered Boardercross. Now, you probably don't know what Boardercross is, but you might know what motocross is, where it's very similar to that. So you have a course of about minute and a half where 4 to 6 snowboarders go down all at once. So it's over rollers, bank corners, jumps, and it's basically just a race to the bottom. It's really exciting, really fast. And I discovered this sport, and I asked my coach if I could have a go at it and train with the British senior team at the time. And I was able to do that, and I loved every single part of it because it was fast, it was exciting, really close. And I actually picked it up quite quickly and started to get good at it. And things were going really well in the Boardercross side of things. I was asked to join the British senior Boardercross team, which at the time I was the youngest person ever to be selected for the senior team. And things slowly started to progress well, but I still wasn't getting the good results. And then suddenly I had a really bad accident in a Boardercross competition where I was going around a bank corner and it had some rollers on, which are bumps, and I just mistimed it, got thrown up into the air about 50, 60 kilometers an hour, head first into the ice, and got completely knocked out. I don't remember any of this. It was just being told what actually happened from my coaches and things. And this was like the first serious crash I had. So going from not getting many good results before to now being injured, again, this came back to my psychological side of things where I was thinking I wasn't good enough. I thought my big break was there and maybe it wasn't. And it was only from this that after I started doubting myself, I kind of came back from that and thought, actually, if that's kind of like the worst that can happen and I'm still alive here, I know I can go back and be better than that. I know I can do better than that. So I asked my doctors what it would take me to get better. They gave me all this physiotherapy, this strength and conditioning, I did everything they said. I started to get stronger. When I was able to get back on my board, I started to snowboard better. I was also getting a bit older, so I started to train in the gym a little bit more. I started to get stronger, started to get faster. And going from not getting any good results prior to my injury, afterwards I ended up getting winning the British Championships, not twice, not three times, twice, but 3 times in a row. And this was really the turning point for me, was that actually now it's something I love doing and what I set out to do, that I finally started getting good results. And it was then when I started setting my goals for going to the 2014 Winter Olympics. And I really put my heart and soul into getting to those Olympics, and even designed my whole life around it. Even going to university, I studied sports performance at Bath University. That was all designed around helping myself in snowboarding and progress my training. And then in January 2013, which was the qualifying year for the Olympics, so this was when I had to be at the top of my game, I unfortunately had another bad accident. This time it wasn't quite as bad as the last one. I didn't get knocked out or anything. It was something very simple. But little did I know at the time it was going to be completely life-changing, because when I was going around a bank corner again on my heel edge, my binding broke and it made me slip out and hit down really hard. And I just remember a big shock of pain going straight up my back. And I knew straight away it wasn't good. I unstrapped, I tried to stand up and I just collapsed straight away. Got taken away to hospital and they told me that I had pretty much destroyed a disc in my lower back. And the doctor went on to say that the injury was such so that I would never be able to run again, never mind snowboard again. And I mean, just like that, everything, my whole life got taken away. And I'd be in pain. He told me I'd be in pain for the rest of my life. And I think it was at this point where I was probably the lowest I've ever been. I really didn't know what to do with myself. It was everything I dedicated my life towards. And I had just been told that basically it was something I would never be able to do again. And it really killed me for a few months. This really started getting to me. I cannot tell you enough how hard it was for me to
really hard.
Watch like all my other friends as well, like doing well in competitions and qualifying to the Olympics. Like I was super proud of them, but at the same time I was really quite finding it hard because I wanted to be there. I wanted to be doing that. I really started to go down a hole basically. But after a while, I honestly couldn't tell you what it was that changed my mindset. It was just me sitting there not really being able to do anything, and I wanted to try to prove the doctors wrong. I wanted to try to prove to them that it wasn't the end of my snowboard career. And now I knew I'd be in pain for the rest of my life. I knew I couldn't do what I used to do in snowboarding, which was all the jumps and bumps and things. I knew that was out of the question, but that didn't mean that I couldn't go back snowboarding in some capacity. But I didn't want to just go back snowboarding and just be defensive and just get down a hill. I still wanted to set myself some big goals. So I injured myself in January 2013. And in April of the same year, I decided that I had enough of this injury. I wanted to try to, like I said, prove the doctors wrong. And in April the same year, I went to Verbier in Switzerland and I broke the British snowboard speed record. And that was basically completely changed the whole path of where I took my snowboarding. And yes, it wasn't going down towards the Olympics, but I started breaking records because it was, in my mind, I'd be in pain, but just to go down a slope for 20, 30 seconds, I could put up with the pain for that long.
You know what you just shared is so many people and so many athletes just go through, and a lot of the people get stuck in that phase of giving up. You never know your human capacity and what you can do. And I love the way you just, you know what, I'm just going to snap out of it. I'll try whatever again and prove everyone wrong. And I love that idea of actually, despite what you've been told, despite the pain you've been going through, and I know it must have been really, really hard because a lot of people go through that. But being able to get back to where you are now and being able to even try, because they said you couldn't walk, didn't they? And being able to say, no, I'm going to prove this wrong and actually try again. That's just inspiring and amazing.
I think for me, it was kind of I had this mentality, even, when you were a kid, when someone tells you you can't do something, you want to do it even more.
Yeah.
And basically I took that stance when the doctor said, right, you'll never be able to snowboard again. And I was like, well, watch this. Obviously, snowboarding is still a big part of my life. I'm still doing lots of videos and more documentaries and doing more world records. So I definitely have a huge concentration on that. But there's only enough funding basically for me to do that during the winter months. I don't have enough money to go down to the southern hemisphere and start filming down there during the summer months. So over the summer months, I'm quite free, apart from just a bit of training. And I'm someone who just can't stay still. I can't do nothing. And this was quite a few years ago when I decided to keep myself busy in some capacity after uni. And that's where my property development stuff came into where it started. Basically, it was a passion project for me to keep myself busy during the summer months. And I love that sort of development side of things. I was able to raise some capital and I was able to buy my first small little flat in an ex-council flat in Bath, which wasn't the best of places. And I didn't expect to make much money. And I just really enjoyed doing most of the work myself. And eventually when it was finished, I put it on the market and ended up making decent amounts of money on it. And it was then I was thinking, right, actually, this could be something I could continue doing and actually make it a business. And after doing a few projects personally, I then set up my company JB Residential and started doing it through a limited company.
Oh, that's really great. With all what's happening, with all what you're doing, especially when you're doing the sports sides, the business sides, you always have doubts coming to your mind. When doubts creep in, what do you actually do or say to yourself to snap yourself out of it?
I think no matter what position you get put into, there is, no matter what the situation, there is some way out of it, or some way to be able to change your mindset from, right, this is horrible, to actually there's a path you can take. Sometimes, obviously, there's things you can't completely overcome. There are some hurdles that are irreversible, but it's about taking that, learning from it, changing your path and progressing from it, and therefore turning a negative into a positive. So you just look at my snowboarding, for example, when I injured myself going to the Olympics. Now, this was career ending. It's done. There's nothing you do about this. I will be in pain for the rest of my life. However, at that point, my goal was always to go to the 2014 Winter Olympics. I was trying to go to the Olympics, but at the same time, the Olympics is all about pushing yourself, pushing your sport, being the best you can be. And in a sense, me going down the side of doing these world records and speed records, which I was still able to do, even though I wasn't able to go to the Olympics, I was still hitting the same life goals as I was wanting to by pushing myself, pushing my sport and pushing my limits. It was just a different route. So despite something being career ending, you can change your path and still be achieving your goals. And I went from going towards the Olympics, but now I'm actually more successful after my injury than I was before. And it just goes to show that it's not always the end. I've always had the mentality of constantly wanting to push myself. And if I'm not performing, I will find a way to do that. And so me being injured, I was like, right, what can I do to get over this? I will always try to find a solution out of the problem. And so I just basically sat down, if you want to say, telling myself to find that solution. And once I did, and found a way out of it, I would put all my effort into it.
I really, really like that. Everyone's got fears internally. What is your biggest fear?
I mean, I've always still got a little bit inside of me not being as good as someone else. So I've always got a little bit of that fear of failure. I think it's something that even though I try to push myself and I try to tell others to do it, I've still got a side of that I am scared of failing. But more and more I fail and come back and learn from the mistakes, the more and more I can teach myself to not be afraid of it.
I love that. I'm sure with all this trust as a business person, as a sports person, you are always constantly challenged all the time. But sometimes we actually need a space where we just relax and find inner peace. How do you actually find your inner peace?
If I can go snowboarding and I'd be on my own in the mountains, even if I go on a hike up a mountain, I'm at the top of this mountain, untouched powder in front of me, listening to music and with my friends, that is generally my happy place. And anytime I can get to that, I will do. But when I can't access, or during the summer months, I've definitely started getting into a bit of meditation as well. And I think that has been helping quite a lot. I'm not very good at it. I'm not going to say I'm any expert in some sort of meditation, but I feel I've learned that actually just stopping, relaxing and switching your mind off for a second really relaxes me and gets me kind of a reboost for being able to tackle the rest of the day. And I felt since I've started doing that, it has been very useful.
A lot of people actually go towards meditation, so it's a good, useful, helpful tool. I recommend it to everyone. I do it myself as well. One of the things I wanted to also ask you is that with all the experiences that you've had now, with all that you've been through in your life, knowing what you know now, if you had the chance to go back and change things, what would you do differently?
Wouldn't do a thing differently, because if I hadn't gone through all the stuff I had before, I would not be where I am today. And there's nothing that sometimes you can tell someone as much as you can about how to do something, but unless they physically go through that or go through the hurdle or trying to overcome that, they will not really learn it properly. And so even if I went back and I told myself that, okay, cool, go do speed records. Oh, property's really good. Go into that. I don't think I would have the same passion and the same drive to be doing those things if I hadn't gone through it. So really, I wouldn't have changed a thing.
What are the 3 habits that made a significant improvement in your life?
I mean, there is the typical things about planning. So getting organized and getting lists and things like this. I think it goes without saying. I think my mindset is something I've been working on. I don't know how to really describe that as in one word, about being a bit more positive mindset towards things and not always being hit down. There's no real habits, I would say, that like, right, I have a routine, I get up, do this, because I also feel that can actually be restrictive to how you progress. And I don't have habits like that. I will have an organized day. I'll be planned, organized list, know my targets, hitting them, goal setting, that sort of thing. But it's like time management, goal setting. Those are the habits which are the most important for sure.
What was the best advice you have ever received?
Yeah, again, going back to that fear of failure thing. Well, when I was finding it quite hard to overcome these hurdles, I was listening to loads of podcasts and things like this. Yeah. And I kind of came across that, what I've been just saying before about not every single hurdle is bad thing. Not every single setback is bad for you. You can turn that into a positive. And I think that's something I've always, since I've started learning that's how I've changed things. No matter what the situation you're in, there will be a way out of it. It's exactly what I was saying before. And that's definitely the advice I've found from other people, listening to people and everything's what I learned.
From what you've learned or read or podcast or listened, if you had the chance to make, like, let's say one book or one podcast or one product mandatory to all high school students, what would it be? What book or audio, whatever it is, what would it be?
Do you know what? A lot of the stuff I've listened to, and it can be seen as a bit, tongue-in-cheek, a bit cheesy, but all the stuff from Alan Watts and his motivation speakers and things like this is always amazing to see. Like, and because a lot of time when I've given talks and stuff in schools, a lot of them are like, well, they're quite deprived schools, some of them. A lot of them are saying, all right, I have no money. How do I become successful through these things? And I think one of the best ones from Alan Watts is that what if money was no object? As one of his most famous ones was asking, right, if money was no object, what would you do? What would you do if money was no object? And asking yourself that question will really get people thinking about, actually, if you're passionate about something, you're going to stick at it. And when you stick at it, you'll be successful at it. And I think that the stuff he can tell is amazing. So 100%.
That's a good, actually, recommendation to have for high schoolers or students.
Yeah, definitely.
In your mind, what do you think is the biggest waste of human potential? I know it's a difficult question, but...
Do you know what? I don't want to pick out like individuals or certain traits or working, but I think it's the lack of ambition. I think a lot of people can go through life and don't really have huge goals. Like they might go, right, I'm just going to see where it goes, and they end up working in basic retail for the rest of their life and not wanting to progress higher in that, just kind of wanting to get through life like that. And I think that is something which is really quite sad to see, because I think without ambition, the world wouldn't be where it is today. Could there be no one around to really push the boundaries? And I think you need that ambition to really push yourself.
A lot of people are just wasting their life away without exploring really what is their like maximum potential.
Absolutely.
And what
taking the risk, not being afraid to take that risk, because I mean, even speaking to my parents and stuff, you kind of look at it like I know they really wanted to get into property and always wanted to do that renovation, but they were always scared to really go out and do it. They were scared about losing money. They were scared of this. But if you don't take that risk, you'll never know. And so I basically did it and showed them that you can do it. And that's motivated them to get involved.
Oh, that's amazing. I think I hope a lot of people can do that with their parents. Not many parents are very listening to their kids, but it's something really nice to see, actually, that you're creating that bond, that motivation to your parents.
Well, it goes both ways, doesn't it? I think you've got a lot from your parents, and I think your parents can also learn off you. So it's a bit of both ways.
Yeah. In your mind, what do you think the number one solution to healing the world?
Well, if it was that simple, I think it would have already been done. But
yeah,
I
like in your mind,
think it's like one solution. I don't know about that one, because I think there are so many different ways of tackling this. I mean, there are so many issues that not one solution will fix the rest. So it comes down to a matter of perspective and what you feel is the most important thing, because there is not one thing. Because you could say, right, give everyone $1 million and see what they do with it, but that's not going to be a solution. That's going to do absolutely nothing. It's not a viable solution. So I don't think there is one thing. It's about tackling people's mindsets and traits to help others. And by doing that one thing, it will then make them go out and do other things. And so really it's about changing their mindset to help others and get involved.
Yeah, you just told me what the solution is. Your kind in a way. It's actually
like I said, there isn't one solution. There isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's if you think there is, you're delusional.
No, I said number one because I know there are other numbers coming along.
But that's a matter of, it is a matter of perspective. It's like you can be solving world hunger, you can be sort of the economic crisis to keep things going, you could be tackling viruses like this. I mean, there's so many different things, but I think it's definitely tackling people's mindsets to be, helping others and being more inclusive for sure.
What is the simple fact do you wish more people understood?
Some fact more people understood. I think not everyone is out there to ruin you. I think competition is healthy. I think competition is what drives a lot of people. And whether that's in business, in sport, whatever you want to think about. Because if you're afraid of that and afraid of someone beating you in something, you will never get anywhere. And I think you've got to realize that actually this is healthy, doing that sort of thing.
I've got 3 more questions left before we end our podcast. In your opinion, and I think you probably mentioned this earlier, but I just want to see if you have another view. If you could fix one world problem yourself, what would it be?
Personally, I don't know if I have a single thing I would like to sort. I would want, personally, for a target of mine, a goal of mine, is definitely to leave some sort of legacy, which would in turn help others. Yeah. So if I can leave some sort of thing, some sort of motivation where others can do stuff like I was talking about before, that is what I would do, because I wouldn't want to just say, right, I want to solve world hunger, I'm going to donate all my money to this. I think if I can inspire others to do more things, that's what's going to really change. It's easier said than done, but like I was talking about before, if you find something you really enjoy doing it, you will get good at it. When you get good at it, you'll be successful at it. And when you're successful, you can inspire others to do the same. And if you can do that, that's when you can really start changing the minds of people. I
think mindset is one of the most important things that's why I'm working on it in my actual work and what you're doing in your work as well. If you were, when it comes to my last question, it's if you were to die today, what are the 3 unique pieces of knowledge or wisdom from your own life and experiences would you give your family or people?
Don't be afraid of failing, for sure. Just because you don't go down one route, can't go down one route for whatever reason, there's always another way to achieve something big. And I think the biggest thing is find something you enjoy doing. That's the most important thing to a lot of people. Obviously you can take bigger things, but a lot of the problem is you look at people going through universities and how many people actually change their course of degree or do a degree and then don't ever get into a job like that. And that's part of the learning process. But if you can find something you're really passionate about, that is what's the most important thing, because if you're stuck in a 9-to-5 job you absolutely hate, you will never progress in that.
Thank you so much. The way you just summed it up, that was actually good. What's the best way for people to reach you directly?
If you ever want to ask me any questions or anything like that, get to me on Instagram, Twitter, anything like this, on JamieBarrow_GB. And we're more than happy to help. But leaving it on the fact, I think there's so many things people can do. And I think it's only when you start to really ask yourself what you would want to do, if you had to do anything in the world, what you want to do. Until you ask yourself that question, you will never know. And I think if you can find that, it's very hard to, but if you can find that, that's when you're going to be successful.
Well, thank you so much, Jamie.
And thank you, Aisha.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me today, everyone. To automatically receive the latest episode, please subscribe. And if you'd like to support the show, please share with one friend that you can help. And if you find it helpful, then please leave a review and comment on who you would also like to see as a guest in the future episodes. You can also message me directly on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Dr. Aisha Al-Sheikh, at DrAishaAlSheikh. Keep working on your dreams to make them reality. And have a great morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are in the world.